What's happening, guys? Normally I would start this video off by saying what's happening in the vinyl community, but this video is actually not a vinyl video. But I wanted to do this video to shout out a friend and hell of a guy in the comics community. As many of you who have followed my channel, you know that my number one passion is vinyl. But what you may not know is my number two passion, and for a while my number one passion was comic books. Only those that know me on a personal level would know that. Well, in 2008, I got away from comics mostly because, I really wasn't happy with the way the comics community was at the time. I lived in North Texas. A lot of the vendors I dealt with, they weren't very kind. They were very snotty. If you remember a comic book guy from The Simpsons, that wasn't far off in some cases. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to get away from comics. It was too many negative, feelings, and got away from it. Sold my collection off. Fast forward a number of years, there were a couple books that I really wanted to get back into the collection. By that point, prices really hadn't, done too much as far as like gone up, and so did some searching on eBay, found a few books here and there, and kept them raw for many years. Fast forward to 2020. I had decided, at that point that I wanted to get the books professionally graded, aka slabbed. There's a couple companies that do it. The big one is CGC. Well, I wanted to protect the books, be able to display them, and have a solid grade on them in case something had to happen. Excuse me, when I had to actually sell, there wouldn't be any argument about the grade. Well, in between 2015 and 2020, there have been techniques that have been developed to help clean up books, cleaning and pressing. Cleaning is, basically taking the book, if it's got dirt on it, just gently cleaning it up, making it more presentable. And pressing is pressing out the defects in the paper. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. It had become a big deal, and I wanted my books to get the best possible chance of an upgrade, grade-wise. Best possible chance of the best grade they could get. And so I was doing some looking around and looking at various pressers, and purely by chance I stumbled on a presser by the name of Daniel Dunn, who owns VALOR Comic Services in West Monroe, Louisiana. I liked his story, liked his history, liked his his examples. We talked, and basically what I found out is he got into pressing. He owned a comic book store in Louisiana with a friend. And why he got into pressing and cleaning was he wasn't happy with other places that were doing it, and one in particular, which I will not mention. But because of that, he decided to get into it himself. And we talked, and I explained I had one or two books that, were basically childhood books that I wanted, that I regained, and I wanted to get them cleaned up. And I sent them out, and the rest is history. And the first book that came back, he made a major impression, and he's been my presser ever since. This is X-Men 101. That's the first appearance of the Phoenix. It's my favorite character. It is the book and the character that got me into comic books in the early 90s. As I'm sure a lot of kids from my generation remember the Fox TV show on Saturday mornings. That's how I discovered the character, and that's how I discovered the comic later. This was originally about a Raw 6.0. Presented really well, but it had some minor issues. And so I sent this to Daniel to clean and press, and he bumped it to an 8. Prices on this book and most books across the board have stabilized quite a bit. This is still a desirable book. It's like one of the biggest runs in the history of the title. And they're not getting any easier to find in higher grades. A lot of them have been snatched up. So for Daniel to bump this to a 8.0 from a 6 was quite the first impression. Like I said, he's been my presser ever since. And recently I've been getting into cleaning myself. And this next book I actually picked up about a year ago. Picked it up through a claim sale on Whatnot through Torpedo Comics. They graded it as a raw 4.0. Generally, when I've dealt with Torpedo, they generally undergrade their books, so there's always a chance for a grade bump. Nobody was bidding on this book. I knew exactly what it was, so I grabbed it for a whopping $15. It was a 4.0. Cleaned the back of it myself, and then sent it to Daniel to work his magic, and he bumped it to a 6.0. This is a Detective 373. This is the second appearance of Mr. Freeze. It denotes it there on the label. I actually had 2 copies of this book, sent them at the same time. One is currently in a mutual friend of the comic community's collection, James and Minhunter Comics. If you don't know his channel, follow him. He's a great guy. But he didn't have this book, and he's a huge Batman fan, so I sent him my other copy. And this one is for my own collection. But again, I cleaned the back myself, but Daniel pressed it, and he bumped it to a 6.0. And I've sent plenty of books to Daniel. I'm going to continue to send plenty of books to Daniel. One thing if you meet me, you'll know is that I tend to be a little bit on the skeptical side with people. I want to see what they can do first, and then if things work the way they're supposed to, or the way I hope they do, continue the relationship. Well, Daniel has been an amazing guy to deal with. He's always come through. He's always helped me out. Every time that I sent books to him, he's always gone above and beyond. And I've always gotten a grade bump. Sometimes it's usually like a 1 grade, or sometimes it's multiple. And then the very last book I'm going to show you actually was one of 2 that came in this past week that I got from him. And but the first thing, hold on one second. This first book is actually a variant of a series that I discovered in mid-2020 by James Tynion. He's become one of my favorite writers, and I saw this cover, and I wanted it, and it's kind of one of the more rare variants. If you don't know what a variant is, for those of you that aren't into comics, they're called incentive variant. They're called incentive ratio variants. Basically, a company orders a certain percentage of a book, they get 1 copy of this variant. So, like 1 in 25, you order 25 of the regular book, you get 1 of those. Sometimes companies will do like straight run, limited edition of 100 or 500 or 1,000, whatever. So this one in particular, I think, was a run of about 500. One of the more expensive variants for the series, but came across one at a good deal. I thought it was a very high grade, and had a potential of a 9.8, so I picked it up. This is Something is Killing Children, number 11, from Boom Studios and James Tynion. This is actually a homage to another one of Tynion's titles, Department of Truth, which, as you can see, there you go. But sent this to Daniel, and this book came back in 9.8. Again, prices will go up, but this is still quite an expensive variant. And with modern books, you'd think, oh, I don't really need to do too much. I mean, it's modern. It's a modern book. They should be able to get 9.8 right out of the gate. It's not that simple. Paper quality is actually a lot less than it's been in years past, and a lot of times they will come from the factory with defects. So if you want a good shot at a 9.8, generally, you need to get your books pressed. And this was a nice raw example. Sent it to Daniel, and Daniel got it as a 9.8, and very happy with it. And the final book I'm going to show you guys is actually one of the few books from my childhood that I still wanted to regain, and I've had another copy in times past, but I wasn't happy with it. Daniel actually pressed that one too. He got it to a 5.5. Bought this book from Torpedo earlier this year. Again, generally been pretty happy with Torpedo. They graded it as a raw 7.0, and I looked at the book and like, that's a beautiful copy. We agreed on a price, and I bought it. Got it, and like, this book could most likely get an upgrade. So again, I cleaned the book myself on the back cover. sent it to Daniel, and both of us were shocked at this bump. I mean, again, it was a 7.0. This is X-Men 50 from November of 1968. This is the second appearance of Polaris, aka Lauren Dane. This is the character right here on the cover. Again, this was a 7.0, but he bumped it to a 9.0. Not a cheap book, and not an easy book to get in that high grade. This is from 1968, and books from this time frame are not easy to find in high grade. When you find them, they are very expensive. We figured, honestly, it would probably get like an 8.0. So it was both me and Daniel surprised that he got it to a 9.0. And I am so thrilled to have this book back in my collection. This is my PC book. It's not going anywhere. I mean, I don't even think the video is going to show how clean this book is. I mean, it presents so well, even for a 9.0. This book, in current pricing, goes for between $1,100 and $1,500 on a 9.0. You get it to a 9.8, you're talking probably $7 to $8 grand, something like that. Most of the books you see of this are generally in the 6.0 range, 6.0 to 7.0. But it's a true testament to, Daniel and his skills as a presser and a cleaner. And I consider Daniel a friend, and I've been very happy with his work. If you guys are looking for a presser, reach out to Daniel at VALOR Comic Services. I will put his information below in the description. Daniel's an awesome dude. He's very passionate about what he does, and in a world where customer service is becoming rarer and rarer and rarer, he does go the extra mile, and he'll be my presser until the day he decides to close up shop. I've got a few more that we'll be sending to him over the next year, and I don't know if every single book's going to come back with basically a 4-point bump, but hey, stranger things have happened. But I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you like what you see, please click like and subscribe. It's been a pleasure as always, and we'll talk again soon. You guys have a great weekend. You guys take it easy.